My boss fired me for lacking creativity even though I designed best-selling products. The injustice. The meeting that changed everything. The air in the conference room felt colder than usual. Not the kind of chill you get from air conditioning, but the type that seeps into your bones when something is wrong and no one said it out loud yet. I sat at the far end of the long glass table, fingers laced together to keep them from trembling. Around me, the rest of the design team laughed at some joke the new creative director had made. I smiled politely, but my mind was elsewhere, half expecting something, though I didn't know what. My name is Elliot Tran, senior product designer at Nexatech, and until that morning, I believed I was indispensable. I'd led the design on 3 of our highest-selling consumer tech products in the last 5 years. My team quietly called me the ghost genius because I hated the spotlight. I didn't fight for credit, didn't speak up in meetings unless I had to, and certainly didn't schmooze with upper management. I let my work speak for itself. But apparently, that wasn't enough. "Let's get started," said Leona Hart, the new creative director. She had joined Nexatech 3 months ago with a reputation for disruption and bold new visions. She dressed in black and white, her words sharp, her eyes sharper. She tapped her tablet. The lights dimmed. A presentation flickered to life on the screen. What I saw made my heart sink. A slide titled, "Creative Team Realignment, Culture Reassessment." Leona clicked to the next slide. "In the spirit of innovation, we've identified roles that no longer fit the forward trajectory of Nexatech's creative goals." No names yet, but everyone sat straighter in their chairs. Then she clicked again. A list appeared, only 3 names. My name was at the top. I blinked. "Wait," I said softly, not trusting my voice. "What does this mean?" Leona looked directly at me. "Elliot, your contributions have been noted, but the leadership feels your creative approach doesn't align with the experimental and expressive direction we're taking." My ears rang. But I looked at my coworkers, then back at her. "I designed the Apex pods, the entire UI for the Nova Band, the touch frame." "Yes," she said, her tone devoid of warmth. "But creativity isn't just about results. It's about presence, energy, vision. You don't contribute in that way." I felt something inside me collapse. The betrayal wasn't just professional. It was personal. "I don't contribute?" I echoed. "Because I don't speak in slogans?" Leona gave a tight smile. "We appreciate what you've done. HR will follow up." And just like that, I was erased. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking. Around the table, eyes darted away, some with pity, some with fear. Not a single person spoke up. I left the room in silence, the door clicking softly shut behind me. That's how 12 years of dedication ended. Fired because I wasn't loud enough, dramatic enough, visible enough, despite designing the very products that made Nexatech a household name. The box by the door. My nameplate was already gone. By the time I returned to my desk, HR had left a cardboard box on my chair brown, unmarked, casual, as if I'd volunteered to leave. My computer was locked. My company email deactivated. A sticky note read, "Badge access disabled at 5 p.m. Thank you for your service." I sat down for a moment, just staring at the box. The open office buzzed with activity around me. People talked in low voices. A few glanced in my direction, then quickly looked away. Only one person approached. Ria, one of the junior designers I'd mentored last year, leaned over the partition, eyes wide with disbelief. "Is it true?" she whispered. "They're letting you go?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Guess I wasn't creative enough." "That's insane," she said. You made the interface for the Aurora. Everyone copied that design for months, even Apple's keynote. Doesn't matter, I said softly. It's done. She looked heartbroken, as if my departure proved something dark about the company neither of us had wanted to believe. Thank you, though, I added, standing up. You're a great designer. Don't lose that. I packed slowly. A sketchbook filled with half-finished ideas. A little ceramic cat from my niece. The prototype I'd built for a smart clock that never launched my personal favorite. I dropped it all into the box, like pieces of a broken identity. As I walked past the reception desk, the security guard didn't look at me, just reached over and quietly took my badge. When the elevator doors closed behind me, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Outside, the world moved on like nothing had happened. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching traffic blur past, feeling oddly weightless, disconnected. Like the city had become a movie I was no longer a character in. My phone buzzed. A message from my sister. Heard from Mom. Are you okay? What happened? I didn't reply. I walked aimlessly for blocks, not sure where to go. I couldn't go home, not yet. I couldn't face the silence of my apartment, or the framed awards on my wall, or the news articles that still had my name attached to Nexitech's biggest launches. Eventually, I ended up at a small diner I used to visit during my intern years, back when everything felt possible. The waitress, an older woman named Dora, recognized me. Haven't seen you in a while, Han. Still designing those fancy gadgets? I hesitated. Not anymore. She frowned. Well, sit down. Pie's on the house today. As I ate, I stared out the window at nothing in particular. I didn't know what came next. No job, no plan. Just a box of memories and the echo of a sentence I couldn't forget. You don't contribute in that way. But something else stirred beneath the despair. Something small and quiet, but alive. Anger? No, not quite. It was the seed of a thought. What if I didn't need Nexitech? What if I built something on my own? Ghost mode? 3 weeks. That's how long I let myself disappear. No calls, no social media. I didn't update my LinkedIn. I didn't tell anyone where I was, except my sister, and even she only got vague replies. I needed to be invisible not to the world, but to the version of me that had relied so desperately on recognition from people who had never really seen me. I lived off savings and cheap takeout. I stayed up late sketching in notebooks and rereading old journals, trying to remember who I was before Nexitech, before job titles and pitch decks, before I learned to speak in bullet points. Every morning, I sat in front of my window with coffee and watched the sun rise behind the skyline, not because I wanted inspiration, but because I needed proof that something still worked. Then one night, it clicked. Not a product idea, not a vision, a need. Not mine, theirs. People, the users, the overlooked, the overworked, the quiet. People like me. I didn't want to design the next big trend. I wanted to make something that mattered. So I did what I had always done best. I started building in silence. I dug out my old hard drive hundreds of scraps, prototypes, rejected features, unloved ideas. I picked a small, simple one to start, something useful. A digital daily companion, part journal, part scheduler, part emotional check-in. Nothing flashy, just smart, human-centered, calming. I called it Drift. I didn't tell anyone. I coded at night, designed during the day, and tested everything on myself. I even paid a freelance developer using a fake name to stress test the backend. I created burner accounts, masked my IP, stripped metadata from designs, No one could trace Drift back to me. I was in ghost mode. It felt good. No managers asking for design rationale slides. No brand consultants telling me to make it pop more. No Leona. Just me, my instinct, and the work. 3 months passed. I put Drift on a small platform that highlighted anonymous tools. No ads, no launch party. Just a quiet release with a description that read, "A calm space to meet your mind. No data harvested, no judgment, just you." I expected nothing, but within a week, users started trickling in. A few dozen, then a few hundred. Then someone posted about it on Reddit. I don't know who made Drift, but it's the first app that actually makes me feel better instead of worse. Downloads spiked. A blogger called it the anti-productivity productivity tool. Therapists recommended it to their clients. Influencers talked about it on TikTok without even knowing where it came from. I watched from the shadows, heart pounding, as Drift passed 10,000 active users. Then 50,000. No one knew who built it, but I did. And for the first time since I was fired, I smiled. Because creativity isn't volume. It isn't noise. It's care. It's thought. It's quiet. Excellence. And I was just getting started. The offer. The email came at 2:17 a.m. Subject line. Opportunity to collaborate from a fan. I almost deleted it figuring it was another cold pitch or someone trying to figure out who was behind Drift. But something about the message preview caught my eye. I know you value your anonymity, but curious, I opened it. Hi. I'm the founder of a small but fast-growing mental wellness startup called Lumen. We've been following Drift closely and admire everything about the way it's built. The UX is brilliant. The emotional intelligence in the flow is unlike anything else we've seen. I don't know who you are, and I won't pretend I can guess. But I'm reaching out with deep respect and a real offer. We'd love to collaborate. On your terms, no strings. We just want to build something beautiful and impactful with whoever made Drift. If you're open to chatting, I'll be at this cafe in Brooklyn every morning this week, 9:10 a.m. Bring whatever name you want. Cass. I read it twice. Then again, my instinct was to ignore it. Stay underground. Drift wasn't supposed to be a business move, it was supposed to be mine. Untouched by corporate hands. But something about the tone stuck with me. No pressure, just respect, an invitation. I let the message sit for a day. Then, too, by the third morning, I found myself standing outside the cafe she'd mentioned. It was small, tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. Not trendy, not polished, just warm. A place you'd miss unless you knew to look for it. I stepped inside and scanned the room. At a corner table by the window sat a woman in her early 30s. Sharp eyes, curly hair pulled into a low bun, a laptop open in front of her with a soft lavender sticker that read, "People, product, always, Cass." I walked over and said, "Mind if I sit?" She looked up. "Only if you're the ghost." I smiled. Something like that. We talked for 2 hours. She didn't push. She didn't prod. She didn't ask for my real name. Instead, she asked about why I built Drift, what I hoped it would feel like for people, what frustrated me most about the way tech handled mental health. I told her everything without telling her anything that could link me to Nexatech. She got it, every word. "I want to fund you," she said near the end, sipping the last of her coffee. "No strings, no ownership, just support. You stay anonymous. You do things your way. But I think the world needs more of what you're doing." I stared at her, speechless. Are you serious? Very. I hesitated. Why? Because I don't meet people like you often. People who make things without chasing recognition. That's rare, and it's exactly the kind of leadership the world actually needs right now. I felt something crack inside me, a wall I'd spent months building to stay safe. I nodded. Okay, I said. Cass grinned and extended her hand. Let's build quietly. 2 weeks later, with Cass's support, I registered a shell company under an alias, hired 2 remote developers and a part-time therapist, and began expanding Drift. Slowly, thoughtfully. No splash, no press release. But people noticed. And soon, something happened that I hadn't anticipated. The media wanted to know who was behind Drift. Bloggers speculated. Think pieces popped up. Then a post on Twitter, now called Pulse, went viral. I think the creator of Drift used to work at Nexatech. Look at the interface patterns, it's eerily similar to the old Nova Band layouts. It got 200 likes in a day. My phone buzzed with inquiries from journalists, tech analysts, even former coworkers. Then, one email changed everything. From Leona Hart. Subject: Let's talk. The knock at the door. I stared at the email from Leona for a long time. Elliot, if this is really you behind Drifthand, I have every reason to believe it is. I'd like to speak with you. In person. We're reevaluating some of our recent decisions and believe there may be opportunities for collaboration. Nexatech would welcome a conversation with you at your earliest convenience. Let's not let old misunderstandings stand in the way of what could be a powerful future together. Leona Hart, Chief Creative Officer, Nexatech. Old misunderstandings? I laughed. Out loud. It was the kind of bitter, disbelieving laugh that rises up when something is so absurd, all you can do is let it out. 3 months ago, I was disposable. Now, because I succeeded without their help, without their permission, they wanted me back. I didn't reply. But I knew this wasn't the end of it. The next morning, someone knocked on my apartment door. Not the buzz from the front gate. Not a delivery. A real knock. Cautious, I looked through the peephole. My breath caught. Noah, a former colleague of the few who'd ever stood up for me in meetings, stood on the other side, holding a coffee and wearing an expression somewhere between awe and apology. I opened the door slowly. Hey, he said. I didn't speak. I know it's weird, he said, stepping back, but I had to see for myself. I had to know if it was really you. I let him in. We sat at my kitchen table in silence for a few moments. Noah finally spoke. Leona's furious, by the way. Your name's being whispered all over the tech world. She's trying to pretend she knew all along, like she discovered you. I said nothing. She wants to make it right, he added. Offer you a position, probably even creative director. I shook my head. No. She's scared. You've built something they couldn't even understand, let alone create. And now they want to claim it. Let them try, I said. They don't own me. He looked around at my apartment. The whiteboards, the notebooks, the glowing screen where I was testing Drift 2. You're really doing this alone? Not alone, I said. Just without noise. He smiled. They'll never get it. Exactly. He hesitated, then pulled something from his jacket, a small envelope. What's this? I asked. He shrugged. An invitation. Nexatech's annual Innovation Gala. Big press event. She's giving a speech. I thought maybe you'd want to see what they say when they think you're not in the room. I almost laughed again. You want me to sneak in? No. I want you to decide what to do with the truth you now own. I took the envelope. After he left, I placed it on the counter, untouched. But that night, I dreamed I was standing on a stage, a microphone in my hand, and the words came out not with rage, but with clarity. And when I woke, I knew exactly what I had to do. The gala. The Nexatech Innovation Gala was a black tie event held in a hall that looked like it belonged in a futuristic cathedral glass ceilings, floating lights, artificial rain falling in slow motion across a suspended sculpture in the atrium. I stood outside the main entrance, wearing a tailored gray suit I hadn't worn since my last awards ceremony years ago. I looked like I belonged there. The invitation from Noah had no name printed on it, just a QR code and the words, "Guest of the Creative Office." Irony, I thought, as the scanner flashed green and let me in. Inside, the room shimmered with artificial brilliance tech royalty, industry press, influencers. But beneath the gloss, I felt the same thing I'd felt in every Nexatech boardroom: performance. People performing innovation, performing passion, performing creativity. I stayed at the edge of the room, invisible, observing. The stage lights dimmed. A spotlight swept across the marble platform as a familiar figure stepped up to the podium. Leona Hart. Hair sharp, suit sharper, a smile that looked like it had been rehearsed 100 times. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice smooth and confident. "Tonight, we celebrate not just technology, but vision. Bold, disruptive, boundary-breaking vision." She paused, smiled wider. "As many of you know, Nexatech has long championed creativity. But in this next chapter, we are embracing it more fiercely than ever. And nothing proves that commitment more than the rise of empathic design tools that don't just serve users, but understand them." A murmur of agreement. "And leading this wave is a revolutionary new platform you may have heard of, Drift." Applause, flashes, whispers. I stiffened. She continued, "While Drift was not built within Nexatech, its approach reflects principles we've long cultivated: intuitive interface, psychological insight, emotional harmony in UX." Wait, was she trying to align herself with my work? She smiled modestly, as if she were the mentor of the anonymous creator. "We look forward to conversations with its brilliant founder and welcome the opportunity to collaborate as pioneers." The room clapped again. Harder. My heart pounded. She was laying claim without ever saying my name. Clever, political, and so false. I could walk out. No one would know I'd been here. But then, someone called from the side of the stage. Actually, a second mic came alive, and Cass walked into the spotlight. Wearing a black blazer, Drift's lavender logo pinned to her collar. The room fell silent. She nodded politely to Leona, then turned to the crowd. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Cass said calmly, "but I feel a responsibility to clarify something." Leona blinked. Her face froze. Cass continued, "The creator of Drift is here tonight. They came not to be celebrated, but to listen, to witness how companies treat those they once discarded." Now the crowd was turning, eyes darting, confused. Cass looked directly at me, and in that moment, I stepped forward, into the light, into the silence, the speech they never expected. I don't remember walking to the stage. One moment, I was standing on the edge of the crowd, heart thudding like war drums. The next, I was in the spotlight, face to face with Leona, with every eye in the room fixed on me. Cameras tilted, phones rose. Someone whispered my name loud enough for others to hear it. Elliot Rowe. A ripple of recognition moved across the audience like static. Former coworkers, industry analysts, people I'd once thought were friends. Leona stepped back slightly, smiling tightly. Elliot, she said, voice smooth as silk dipped in acid. This is unexpected. I took the mic Cass had offered me, and for the first time in months, I spoke not in defense, not in anger, but in truth. Thank you, I said, my voice clear, steadier than I felt. Thank you for this opportunity to say what I never got the chance to say the day I was fired. You could have heard a pin drop. I scanned the crowd. Most looked curious, a few looked nervous, and in the back, Noah stood, arms crossed, nodding once. I was told I lacked creativity, I said, despite leading design on products that changed your revenue trajectory, despite quietly mentoring half your UX team, despite putting in years of heart and listening and invisible labor. I turned to Leona. I was told I didn't contribute in that way. Her smile faltered. A flicker of discomfort crossed her face. Fast, but I saw it. I wasn't angry that day, I continued. I was disappointed, because the version of creativity you valued was loud. Loud ideas, loud egos, loud rooms where only the confident survived. I paused, but drift was born in silence. A few people shifted in their seats. Drift wasn't made to impress. It was made to help. It was built from the quiet lessons of being overlooked, of listening deeply, of designing not for headlines, but for humans. A woman near the front was wiping her eyes. Real creativity isn't always loud, I said softly. Sometimes it whispers. And if you can't hear it, that's not its failure. That's yours. Now there was no pretense. Just the truth, echoing off the walls of the same industry that had once chewed me up. I looked at the crowd one last time. You don't need to know my name or my story. Just use the product. If it helps you, then it's done what it was meant to do. That's all the credit I ever needed. I turned, handed the mic back to Cass, and walked off the Staginot to applause, but to silence so profound, it felt like reverence. Behind me, someone started clapping slowly, then faster. Then everyone stood. Leona didn't move, but it didn't matter, because I wasn't here for her approval anymore. Drift rising. The next morning, I woke to chaos. Not the kind with sirens or shouting, but the digital kind. My phone, usually silent, was a flood of pings, mentions, messages, missed calls from unknown numbers. Elliot Rowe was trending. A clip of my speech had gone viral, shared by designers, therapists, developers, and, surprisingly, even students. Someone had added subtitles. Someone else turned it into a short animated reel. A quiet wave had turned into a surge. I scrolled through hundreds of comments. Finally, someone said what most of us feel. Loud doesn't mean creative. This hit me in the chest. I cried watching this. We need more Elliots. Drift's download numbers exploded. 100K, then 250K, then 500K. And yet, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt seen, in a way I'd never expected. This wasn't revenge. This was liberation. Cass called that afternoon. You okay? She asked, half laughing, half breathless. I think so. You broke the internet. I didn't mean to. I know, she said. That's why it worked. She paused. And Elliot, investors are calling. Partnerships. You're going to have options. Big ones. I sat in silence, letting that sink in. I'd spent years climbing someone else's ladder. Now I had the chance to build my own. Within a week, we launched a community edition of Drift Free Forever, privacy respecting, open to anyone. I hired developers I believed in. artists who didn't chase clout, advisors who listened before they led. Some were people I'd worked with before people Nexitech had also undervalued. And we created more than an app. We created a movement. Quiet design, ethical software, tools that respect your space, your data, your humanity. No pop-ups, no manipulative loops, just grounding, just drift. One night, I got an email from an old coworker. "Hey, Elliot. I left Nexitech last month. Too many ideas were getting killed in the boardroom. I want to build again. If you ever need another pair of hands, let me know. P.S. I'm using Drift daily. I think it's saving my life a little." I cried reading it, not out of sadness or pride, but because I finally knew I'd created something that mattered. Drift passed 1 million users a month later. I never went back to Nexitech. I didn't need to, because I was no longer chasing someone else's idea of success. I was living my own. The letter she never sent. It arrived in an unmarked envelope. No return address, no company logo. Just my name, written in cursive Eliotand, sealed with a single piece of Nexitech's signature navy tape. At first, I thought it was a contract. Another attempt. Another offer, dressed in false humility. But when I opened it, I found a handwritten letter on heavy cream paper. The ink was clean and even, deliberate. It was from Leona, and it wasn't a pitch. "Elliot, I drafted this letter 6 times. You'll probably never respond, and I don't expect you to. But there are things I should have said long before now. You were right. About everything. We built a culture that rewarded volume over value. We confused charisma with creativity. And we let ego become policy. I helped make that culture. I'm not proud of it. You were quieter than the rest, but your ideas lingered in every room long after you left them. I see that now. I think, deep down, I always did. We didn't fire you because you lacked creativity. We fired you because your presence made us confront what creativity really meant, and we weren't ready for that kind of truth. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll believe that I finally learned the lesson you tried to teach us just by being who you are. Congratulations on Drift. The world is better for it. L. I read the letter twice, then again, and then I put it back in its envelope and tucked it into a drawer not to forget it, but to remind myself of something I'd only recently come to understand. Closure doesn't always come with confrontation. Sometimes, it comes as a whisper you never expected. A note never meant for the public. A private acknowledgement that the world finally sees what it once chose to ignore. That night, I stood on the balcony, looking out at the quiet city. Drift's servers were holding strong. Users were sending in stories of comfort, of clarity, of simply feeling less alone. And for the first time in years, I felt complete. Not because I'd won, but because I no longer needed to. The final design. It started, like all my best work, with silence. No brief, no deadline, no market trend chasing me. Just a question, written in a single line across my whiteboard. What if peace could be designed? Drift had grown beyond anything I imagined. The app was helping people. It wasn't just downloaded, it was used, daily, meaningfully. Therapists wrote in. Parents. Veterans. Even teenagers battling burnout from lives that were already too loud. But I felt something stirring again. A quiet itch. Not to expand. Not to scale. But to create something complete. I moved to a small cabin on the edge of the woods for a while. No meetings, no pings, no press, just nature, quiet, and a sketchpad. Cass called it my monk mode. I called it designing like I used to, from instinct, from empathy, from the quiet inside me that had been drowned for too long. And slowly, the final design began to take shape. Not a feature, not a product, a space. It was called Still Point, a hybrid between digital and physical experience, a meditative environment guided by Drift's principles, but enhanced with sound, motion, light, and personalized presence. An interface not of screens, but of ambiance. It wouldn't be sold, wouldn't be licensed. It would be gifted to libraries, to hospitals, to schools, places where people went to find themselves when they felt lost. Still Point was the culmination of everything I believed design could be. Not intrusive, not addictive, just available. Like a friend who knows when to sit beside you in silence instead of offering advice. The first prototype was installed at a clinic in Portland. A child with sensory processing issues sat in it for 20 minutes, something his parents said had never happened before. He came out smiling, hands relaxed, whispering, "Can we go back tomorrow?" That was the moment I knew. This was it. The final design wasn't about innovation. It was about presence. Months later, as Drift and Still Point both stabilized into living, breathing systems without me needing to hold their hands, I started stepping back. Not because I was done, but because I finally trusted the work to speak louder than I ever could. The last design file I opened on my laptop was titled, "Let It Go," and when I closed it, I felt no fear, only gratitude. For every failure, every unfair dismissal, every lonely step I took while the world called me unimaginative. They had no idea, but now they did. One last notification. It was a quiet evening. Golden light poured in through the windows of my new studio, part office, part greenhouse, part nothing in particular. No alarms, no rush, just the hum of the world moving at its own pace. I was tending to a small moss terrarium, my latest obsession, when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, old habit, but something about the timing, the stillness made me check. One new notification. Not from social media, not from investors, not from press. Just a name. Noah Liu. I opened it. "Hey, Elliot. Sorry to pop up out of nowhere. Just wanted to say I left Nexitech. Too much posturing, too little substance. I joined a nonprofit now, helping young designers figure out who they are before the system tells them who they should be. Drift helped me make that decision. Still Point reminded me who I was before the noise. I owe you more than I can say. If you're ever in the city, coffee's on me. N." I stared at the message for a while. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. People were changing. Maybe not all at once, but one by one, quietly. Like me. I smiled. Typed back, "Hey Noah, thanks for letting me know. No need for coffee. Just keep making space for the ones still learning to trust their own voices. That's how we fix this. Elliot." I turned off my phone, slipped it into a drawer, picked up a small brush and cleaned the edge of the moss, gently. Outside, birds stirred in the trees. Inside, my chest felt light. No more need to prove. No more scripts to rewrite. No more design reviews to survive. Just this. A whisper of green, a finished thought, a life not loud but true. And as the light faded into evening, I smiled again. Because that one last notification, it wasn't an end. It was proof. Even silence leaves echoes.